your graphics card brand, is it an NVIDIA or an AMD card? AMD or NVIDIA?
NVIDIA. Why would you have anything else?
Team Red all the way, man. You know, like supporting the underdog.
When I did try to get an AMD card, it wasn't compatible. So I was just like...
It wasn't compatible. So I'm out here at PAX West 2022, roaming the expo hall, looking for PC gamers to ask them one simple question. In their own computers, do they have an AMD or an NVIDIA graphics card? Or I guess Intel, because that's a thing now. But yeah, let's see what people have to say. On the graphics card, what brand do you have, NVIDIA or AMD?
NVIDIA.
NVIDIA.
Okay, so 2 NVIDIAs. Now, do you have a preference?
Probably NVIDIA.
Yeah, what he said.
All right, so you both prefer NVIDIA. Now, may I ask you why you prefer NVIDIA?
The colors. It looks cool, dude. It looks cooler. Trust. It looks cooler. It has, in my opinion, it has a longer brand recognition than AMD.
Yeah.
Right now, I have a 2080. I'm probably going to upgrade to the 40 series when they come out. I usually like to get my cards once all the specs are actually out.
AMD or an NVIDIA graphics card?
NVIDIA.
Preference between AMD or NVIDIA?
Not really. Just the first one I found online. It looked good. I would consider both.
NVIDIA.
NVIDIA.
Do you have a preference towards NVIDIA over AMD?
NVIDIA.
Preference? Yeah.
No preference.
Really bad experience in the past with AMD. Crashed out on me like 4 times in 4 different ones, so.
Would you ever give them a chance in the future?
At the right price.
I have an NVIDIA 3080.
Preference between NVIDIA or AMD?
During the scalper wars of the pandemic, whatever I could get when my 2070 bricked.
Oh, I use AMD all the time.
Preference between AMD or NVIDIA?
I'd say AMD. It works pretty well for me. The price is pretty reasonable.
It's an NVIDIA by MSI. I've had some AMDs, especially like the old school Radeon 7770 and such.
Okay, yeah.
But I've had like 4 of them fail on me ever since I've kind of been NVIDIA. Looking at both companies, I'll generally check CPU specs, benchmarks, things like that. And whichever one's going to get a good benchmark and decent price, I'll go with that.
I have Pedro here, the founder of PCMR. In your own personal PC, what brand is your graphics card, NVIDIA or AMD?
Currently it's NVIDIA.
Do you have a preference between NVIDIA or AMD?
Not a preference. I don't think anyone should really look at brand as the first thing when it concerns PC hardware. You have to look at what makes sense to you. That's one of the things that makes PC building beautiful, like the freedom to create what you need, not just a brand. I don't think people should do that.
Okay, that's the perfect answer, and I wouldn't have expected any less from the founder of PCMR himself.
NVIDIA.
All right, we got NVIDIA, and then...
Yeah, me too. Kind of just went with what was kind of like top of the line at the time.
Back in the day, there used to be something that rendered incorrectly on AMD, and I just stopped buying them at that point and never looked into it again.
NVIDIA. Same. Prefer NVIDIA.
All right.
Same. I've had graphics or driver issues with AMD in the past.
Okay.
Their drivers are pushy, and they used to try and overwrite the Windows defaults. So the graphics driver would crash Windows. That was like 10 years ago, so they may have fixed it, but it was a bad enough experience. I've never gone back.
So we have NVIDIA. It's a 2080, I believe. I tend to like NVIDIA just because it seems to work a little bit better with the parts that I have for my PC.
Gotcha.
But I've played on both, and I just like NVIDIA more, man. I don't know.
No, that's fine. Some people just like it either through. Do you think it's due to familiarity? Like you've had more NVIDIA cards in the past?
I mean, probably, yeah.
I have an NVIDIA.
NVIDIA as well.
I don't really have a preference.
For me, NVIDIA is pretty good. So there's no reason to like drop it.
Yeah.
But I've never tried anything else, so I might have to give it a try. Yeah. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know a lot about PC parts. Yeah. So I just bought a pre-built.
Okay, no problem. Pre-builts are awesome ways to get people into PC gaming. Yeah. Do you have an NVIDIA or an AMD graphics card?
NVIDIA.
All right, you have NVIDIA. Now, do you have a preference between the two?
NVIDIA. I think there's a lot of side programs that NVIDIA offers that's beneficial for the things that I do.
Are you a streamer by chance? Okay, so do you use like NVIDIA broadcast with like the RTX voice noise reduction?
RTX voice. My husband shares the same apartment as me, so it's a little bit hard to cancel out noise, but NVIDIA voice really does all the extra sounds.
All right, so I'm here with Justin from Robitech. I'm going to ask him the same question I've been asking everybody else. Okay. In your own personal computer, what graphics card brand do you have?
I have an NVIDIA RTX 3090 Ti.
Okay, so you got the top of the line NVIDIA card. Now, do you have a preference between AMD versus NVIDIA?
Yeah, right now I do. I've had a ton of issues with AMD GPU, specifically with their drivers in certain games.
Okay.
So I do have a system with a 6950 that we also primarily we try to game on. But yeah, no, right now I'm still an NVIDIA guy. We try to use them both. I mean, again, we test both of them. I'm actually really excited with what they're doing with it's coming out with the 7000 series. So we will definitely check them out. We will continue to cover them. They're a great partner, and I love the competition. It's nice to actually have a choice, which is the biggest thing.
NVIDIA.
Preference towards AMD or NVIDIA?
Mainly NVIDIA. That's mainly what I've used.
Okay, so you stuck to NVIDIA. Is there any particular reason why?
No, not really. Just what I've always used since I started.
All right, so I'm here with Captain Falcon. Awesome cosplay. The glowing eyes are crazy. Your graphics card brand, is it an NVIDIA or an AMD card?
It is an NVIDIA card. From reputation, NVIDIA is my preference, but I've never tried an AMD card. I do look at cards every now and again.
Yeah.
And I have only been looking at NVIDIA cards. I look at AMD processors. I love AMD processors.
Yep.
But if not for this conversation, I probably would have just looked for an NVIDIA card.
Okay, well, I'm glad I was able to talk to you about this so that now you do your research between the two and then choose whichever's best for you.
I have the NVIDIA 3060 Ti. I built my first PC with NVIDIA, so I kind of stuck with them till the end.
Okay.
Someday I might change, but until then, NVIDIA till I die.
I have an NVIDIA. I've been kind of brand loyal to NVIDIA.
On your next upgrade, would you consider both companies at that point?
I would probably be skewed towards NVIDIA, but depending on how it's going in the future, I could be swayed.
I have an NVIDIA. I had a 3070 Ti. I don't really have a preference. I just kind of I wanted to go to the next gen, and I think I just had an opportunity to get a 3070 Ti.
Okay.
I would go with AMD if I had the choice. I like AMD. I have a Ryzen 9 and an NVIDIA graphics card, so I like AMD just fine.
NVIDIA.
All right, now, do you have a preference towards one company over the other?
I would only pick NVIDIA at this point. I think if you can't afford NVIDIA, AMD is awesome. But I mean, it's kind of like a thing where as long as you can afford NVIDIA, you should get NVIDIA. And if you can't, AMD is a good budget option. I like G-Sync. G-Sync alone, that's the one, yeah.
Okay, now have you tried FreeSync at all?
No.
Would you be willing to give it a try? You troll.
No.
So NVIDIA fanboy all the way?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, gotcha.
I think it's an AMD.
I've got an NVIDIA.
Preference towards one brand or the other?
I like them both really. My last build was an AMD card.
Okay.
Just with more modern cards, I just preferred the performance I've seen with NVIDIA cards.
Okay.
Just a few friends had some issues with AMD ones. They still perform great. Just seen a few driver issues and stuff, but nothing major.
NVIDIA. Okay, now do you like one company more than the other?
I don't really care, honestly, as long as it works.
I don't know.
I believe it's an NVIDIA currently.
Believe it's an AMD.
AMD.
AMD, okay.
NVIDIA. Whatever's cheaper when I'm building my PC.
I like that answer.
I like the one that has the better encoding stuff, so usually NVIDIA. I like to stream my movies to my other devices, so it helps.
Do you have AMD or NVIDIA?
NVIDIA. I have a preference towards AMD.
You have it for your graphics card towards AMD?
Yes, I bought my graphics card during the super graphics card shortage.
Yep.
I won a spot to buy it, so I just had to go with it.
Interesting. Okay, now I don't hear that many people preferring AMD, so I have to ask you, why prefer AMD?
Team Red all the way, man. Supporting the underdogs and everything they're doing. All open source stuff. I'm a developer myself, and I just love it. Everything AMD does, basically.
NVIDIA.
All right, NVIDIA. Do you have a preference between the two brands?
I guess NVIDIA, but for no real reason. It's just what I have always used.
For the graphics card, do you know what brand it is? At least NVIDIA or AMD?
I don't. I'm sorry.
We have Death Tech from official Jawa staff, aka Ryan here. What brand graphics card do you have right now? NVIDIA or AMD?
NVIDIA right now.
Preference between NVIDIA or AMD?
Not really. It's really whatever's affordable, whatever's a good value. So I've ran a 6900 XT and I've run a 3080 12 gig.
So why did you end up switching it?
Actually, it was an aesthetic reason. So I know you think it might have been a performance reason, but it was aesthetics. So I needed to switch to a water-cooled card during the height of the shortage. I popped up in the EVGA queue and I was able to get a 3080 12 gig hydro copper.
I have two game PCs. One's NVIDIA, one's AMD.
Okay, so you got a split. That's good.
Yep.
NVIDIA.
I actually prefer NVIDIA after using the AMD one recently. I feel like the integration with a lot of the games I play, it just feels smoother with the Intel one, or not Intel, sorry, but the NVIDIA.
I have a NVIDIA. I prefer NVIDIA because over time, I have seen game developers
encounter issues when they try to use the AMD cards. To be honest, I'm not too sure. I got an Alienware laptop.
Okay, no worries if you don't know. Yeah.
AMD.
Oh, AMD, okay.
NVIDIA.
All right, so we got a split between. Actually, we have all the different answers that we could get. Do you have a preference towards one or the other, the company?
Not really a preference.
No preference.
NVIDIA. Preference towards NVIDIA, or are you cool with both companies?
I don't have a preference.
I have NVIDIA.
Preference towards one company or the other?
Not particularly.
NVIDIA. I have a preference over NVIDIA, actually. I think they have a more like advanced ray tracing technology, and that's what I'm really like kind of, I want to try out the new things.
So I am joined with Super Saiyan Goku here with the small spirit bomb forming.
I'm working on it.
In your gaming computer, do you have an AMD or an NVIDIA graphics card?
I've got NVIDIA, but I give it a little charge, so. Yeah.
Okay. Now, do you have a preference between NVIDIA or AMD?
Oh, I'm not smart enough to know the difference.
Oh, you're not smart enough? Hey, I mean, that's perfectly fine too.
Oh my God, I don't know.
You don't know? Okay, that's totally fine. You don't know either? No.
I don't know too much about computers, but my friend chose one for me. I got some 3070 Ti.
I have an NVIDIA.
Preference towards NVIDIA or?
I'd probably go to NVIDIA. I don't know, just more familiar with it, I guess. I'm not super familiar with the AMD stuff.
NVIDIA.
Do you have a preference between NVIDIA and AMD?
For graphics cards, yes, NVIDIA. From like the benchmarks that I've seen, and then also just like quality of like cards and stuff, I feel like the NVIDIA cards are just better.
Have you ever had an AMD card before in the past?
A long time ago, but I haven't had one in a while, so I know that things have changed up a little bit.
NVIDIA.
Preference towards NVIDIA over AMD?
NVIDIA probably.
Okay.
Because it's just what I've grown used to, and like I'm not willing to like change over so quickly.
NVIDIA.
NVIDIA?
NVIDIA as well.
Preference towards one brand or the other?
Definitely NVIDIA.
So you both?
My friend who's a computer expert gives me a lot of reasons to not want AMD, so I think one of them's just the temperature on their cards.
I just picked NVIDIA a while ago and I was kind of stuck with it, so.
Okay, so you're just comfortable and familiar with it.
I am Wotan the Fairy Smasher.
All right, so in your gaming computer, what brand graphics card do you have, AMD or NVIDIA?
NVIDIA. Why would you have anything else?
Wow, okay, so I was going to ask, do you have a preference towards one brand or the other? But I think that answer is clear.
I just got right to the point.
Gotcha, all right. Now, why don't you like AMD then?
Because you can always rely on NVIDIA. It'll always be there for you. AMD, terrible support. You're always having to hunt for a driver, having to hunt for a solution. NVIDIA is a plug and play, and I like things simple.
I'm here with Harji, another fellow tech content creator. He does a lot of custom keyboard stuff as well as computer builds, lots of good-looking computer builds, as well as hardline liquid cooling loops.
I use NVIDIA mostly because of the content creation side of things. Mainly it's for the NVEC encoder. I have a preference towards NVIDIA right now, but I'm also open up to AMD just in like, I mean, you know, if in case they actually do a better job, and also best bang for your buck too. So I'm considering all factors when it comes to purchasing.
It's NVIDIA.
Okay, now do you have a preference towards one brand or the other?
Not so much, no. I still have to research on that. I'm still like really casual and new to it. I would actually consider both brands. Just because I'm just brand new to it, I shouldn't just stick to one thing. So I would consider it.
NVIDIA.
I've got NVIDIA.
For what I do, I think NVIDIA works better, but AMD is also perfectly valid for other stuff.
I don't have a preference between the brands per se, but NVIDIA's Tensor cores are a bit more valuable for when I'm doing some machine learning stuff.
Okay. Gotcha,
and that makes a bit of a difference.
I'm using an NVIDIA card. I have a 980 Ti.
Okay.
So,
you're due for an upgrade kind of.
Yeah, when I got it, I was an NVIDIA diehard person. So I was like, oh, AMD is not as good as NVIDIA. But right now, I feel like it's pretty close.
Do you know if you have AMD or NVIDIA for the brand?
I can't remember. It's been a while.
Okay, you can't remember.
I have AMD.
Which card?
Oh, geez, I don't even know. It was a pre-bought from, it's an Orion from Best Buy.
And then what's in your system?
I didn't build it, he did. I have NVIDIA though, I know that for sure.
I also have NVIDIA.
So 2 NVIDIAs and an AMD. Did you have any preferences on yours?
No, I'm pretty basic gamer, so as long as it ran the games, I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think about it too much.
NVIDIA graphics card. I do not have a preference.
Which card do you have, by the way?
I have a 3070 Ti. I have heard some very negative things about AMD cards with respect to their drivers not working sometimes. So NVIDIA is very well established. For my CPU, I'm using an AMD CPU. So I really have no preference. However, the 3070 Ti was just the perfect card for me at the moment.
So I'm here with Tony Tech Bytes, fellow content creator, big on TikTok.
I have an NVIDIA RTX 3080 Ti. I am just more used to NVIDIA. When it comes to drivers, generally speaking, they're more stable. Of course, that's just a super general statement.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been really happy with the performance of it, and I'm also looking forward to RTX 40 series too.
Your next graphics card upgrade, you already know that you're gonna lean towards NVIDIA?
Yes, well, most likely.
Okay.
We could also check out the Intel Arc GPUs coming up, maybe.
NVIDIA.
Okay, now, do you have a preference towards one brand or the other?
No. Based on benchmarks alone is how I'm going to decide my choice.
I have NVIDIA. I wouldn't say I have necessarily loyalty one way or another, but when I was buying NVIDIA, I think was the better choice for me.
I have NVIDIA.
Preference between the two?
I actually went with a friend's suggestion, and he told me to choose NVIDIA, so I just went with that.
I have NVIDIA. I've always had a NVIDIA graphics card in most of my computers. I haven't had that much experience with the AMD.
Would you consider both companies, or do you think you would stay mostly with NVIDIA?
I think I would definitely be practical, where I would look at both companies and see which graphics card would best suit my needs.
You said you're building your computers. They're not built yet.
Correct, not built yet.
Have you gathered any of the parts for it yet?
Yes, we've got the CPU and GPU. 3060 Ti Founders Edition.
For both of us.
We just got the same thing.
It was
We're like,
$400.
That was Best Buy, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you prefer NVIDIA, and is that why you ended up with it?
It was a friend's
suggestion.
Yeah, it's our first time build. So.
Okay, so a friend suggested NVIDIA and you went with it.
I think it's AMD.
You think it's AMD?
It was a pre-built.
Preference towards one company or the other?
I would say the preference is not really towards one company if like all the components it is what you want it to perform.
I think I still have a 1080 Ti.
All right, so NVIDIA, and then do you have a gaming PC?
Yes, a 3070.
And so a 3070. Now, do y'all have a preference?
It's about availability at this point, right?
NVIDIA. I used to run with AMD, but the video driver update process kind of soured me. I did that for about 10 years and switched to NVIDIA about 4 years ago.
Do you have an AMD or NVIDIA graphics card?
Oh, I'm not quite sure. I'm so sorry. I didn't.
I'm NVIDIA.
NVIDIA, and then
same.
Preference towards one or the other?
Probably NVIDIA. It's just what I've always had.
It flip-flops depending on the year.
NVIDIA.
NVIDIA, and you?
NVIDIA as well. I've always ran NVIDIA. I never had an AMD to compare.
Okay.
That's, yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, same scenario. I just stick with NVIDIA. I would give AMD a shot. It would honestly depend on what is kind of out at the time for price to performance.
Okay.
Exactly, yeah. The price to performance is really what matters to me.
NVIDIA.
Preference towards one brand or the other?
I don't.
NVIDIA. I considered both, but the one that I was able to get my hands on was the one that was available. It was during the peak of like the pandemic as well as the shortages. Yeah.
Gotcha.
I have NVIDIA.
All right, NVIDIA. Now, do you have a preference towards one or the other?
I like NVIDIA more. In my research and my little brother just using it, I'd probably still do NVIDIA.
Okay.
He uses AMD and he's struggling on certain games.
AMD.
Do you have a preference towards either brand?
Not really. I've only had one.
Okay.
That was AMD, so I don't really know too much about it, but it works great. I haven't had any flaws or anything.
So you're still learning about it. Did you build your own system, by the way, or did you buy a pre-built?
I bought a pre-built one.
Okay. And the system's had no issues so far, and you're enjoying your card?
Yeah.
NVIDIA.
Do you have a preference between AMD or NVIDIA?
NVIDIA, because of shadow play. I find it useful.
I have an AMD. I haven't really had any experience with NVIDIA. I'm only just now getting into the PC space, but I'm liking AMD so far. So I actually bought an iBuyPower pre-built, and it came with an AMD inside.
Okay, this is your first system?
Yes, this is my first PC ever.
I have an NVIDIA. I do have a preference for NVIDIA.
Okay. Why do you have that preference?
Mostly ray tracing and DLSS. So.
I have an NVIDIA.
AMD.
And you have AMD?
Yeah.
Preference towards NVIDIA or AMD?
Not really.
No preference?
No,
How about yourself?
no preference.
I would look up like the spec differences between the prices, and then whatever benchmarked higher for a lower cost, I would buy.
So I'm here with Braythorn, a fellow content creator who actually specializes in pre-built PCs. In your own personal system, what graphics card brand do you have, NVIDIA or AMD?
I have NVIDIA.
Do you have a preference between AMD or NVIDIA?
Well, for that short question, let me give you a long answer.
Okay.
You remember the keynote for RDNA 2? What did Dr. Lisa Su say? She said RDNA 2 in Radeon is for gamers. And I was like, there's more that needs doing with the GPU than gaming. It's an unfortunate truth that hardware-wise, they don't really put a whole lot of effort into encoding, whereas NVIDIA has a really good grasp on that. Now, my hope is that with RDNA 3, that they turn that around. It's not just the hardware, it's also stuff like NVIDIA Broadcast.
Yep, exactly.
All the features involved with that, it goes beyond hardware and it shows where their intentions lie.
AMD or NVIDIA?
AMD.
Do you have a preference between AMD or NVIDIA in terms of like when you're shopping for computer parts?
Not at the moment. I'm actually a beginner, but so far I do like AMD.
NVIDIA.
Preference between the two brands at all?
Just whatever is cheapest and most powerful at the time.
Gosh, what is it?
NVIDIA or AMD?
It's an NVIDIA 3080.
Preference between NVIDIA and AMD?
I actually wanted to go with the AMD one, but it was just too hard to get at the time, and I was able to get a 3080.
NVIDIA.
NVIDIA.
Preference between AMD or NVIDIA?
NVIDIA.
All right.
NVIDIA.
I have had AMD cards in the past, just preferred getting NVIDIA recently.
To have to stick with NVIDIA only because when I did try to get an AMD card, it wasn't compatible. So I was just like...
It wasn't compatible?
Like with my motherboard stuff because I didn't have the right slot. Oh. So this was like back in the day.
Oh, back in the day, okay.
You can call it trauma, you can call it just...
Trauma, okay.
Trauma with AMD.
All right, fair enough. AMD or NVIDIA graphics card?
AMD.
Do you have a preference towards one card or the other?
I don't really have any brand preference on it.
Currently NVIDIA.
Currently NVIDIA. Have you had AMD in the past?
I have.
Brand loyalty or preferences towards one company or the other?
No.
It's an NVIDIA 3080 Ti.
Okay, very nice card. Preference towards AMD or NVIDIA?
Generally NVIDIA, but that's also kind of work-related stuff. I do a lot of data science, and the tensor cores on there I use a lot for work.
Okay.
As far as processor, a lot of the time I lean AMD. So.
Do you have an NVIDIA or an AMD graphics card?
NVIDIA.
You have NVIDIA. Okay, now do you have a preference for NVIDIA over AMD, or are you okay with either?
Not particularly, no. Yeah, I think I'm okay with both.
We both have NVIDIA.
Both have NVIDIA? Okay. Now, do you have a preference between AMD versus NVIDIA?
NVIDIA, for sure.
So you prefer NVIDIA and you do as well. Okay.
Truthfully, the games that I play are optimized more for NVIDIA than they are for AMD.
Okay, gotcha.
Same thing.
Same thing for you?
Right now, I just have a laptop. I moved recently.
Do you know what graphics card is in there?
Not at the moment, no.
Right now, NVIDIA. I go one or the other depending on, who just happens to be the best that particular year. NVIDIA.
Preference between one company or the other?
I guess NVIDIA just because that's what I have right now, but no, not really. Whatever's not being super expensive.
NVIDIA.
Preference towards one brand or the other?
No, I think I just get whatever, in the last couple of years, whatever's available and whatever's cheaper.
It's NVIDIA.
Preference between NVIDIA versus AMD?
No, I don't.
No preference?
I just have what I have.
You just have what you have, all right.
NVIDIA.
Preference between NVIDIA and AMD?
For graphics card?
Yeah.
NVIDIA. I've just heard that AMD has a lot of firmware issues.
Okay.
That it takes them a long time to get the kinks right. And then also, NVIDIA was there. Like, honest, at this given rate, beggars can be choosers. So I just get whatever I can get, right?
NVIDIA.
Preference between using either of the two brands?
Whatever is in my budget. I'm totally cool with whatever.
NVIDIA.
Preference between NVIDIA versus AMD?
Not particularly. Whatever price bracket suits my financial situation.
We got all kinds of responses. We had people who leaned towards one brand or the other, people who didn't have any preferences, and even some people who didn't really know what they had in their systems, which is okay too, because, just because you're a PC gamer doesn't mean you have to know every single thing. That's just something that sometimes comes with, more time when you have to do your first upgrade, then you'll start to learn more about it. But yeah, now it's time for you all to answer down in the comments. What do you have in your system, AMD or NVIDIA, or I guess Intel? Do you have any preference towards one company or another, and why? But yeah, other than that, that's gonna wrap up this video. I hope you guys all enjoyed. I will see you down in the comments as well as the next stream and or video. Be safe out there. Bye.